Welcome back to the Ed Morrissey Show, and welcome back to the Prince of Twitter, the regent of redstate.com, Andrew Malcolm at AHMalcolm on Twitter. We've been off a couple of weeks. One, the holiday, another because Andrew had better things to do. You were like having fun and having a life. I don't know what that's like, Andrew.
I was I was grandparenting. So yes.
Well, and that is the ultimate day off excuse. Grandparenting is awesome, and there is no better reason to have a day off. It's great to have you back, though.
Thank you.
And especially since there's been so many new developments in the war with Iran, which is to say there haven't been any.
Yeah, really. Isn't that something? Well, Trump has always said, including in his book, The Art of the Deal, that the most important thing in making deals is the willingness to walk away. And both with Iran and Ukraine, he has shown a distinct willingness not to walk away. And I think the people on the other side are taking advantage of that.
Yeah. I think I get the impression, and I think they've gotten the impression too, that he wants a deal more than they do.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. And he should know that.
Putin, there's no deal that's acceptable to Putin except to win what he can't. And he's losing ground now. And as far as Iran is concerned, as we've seen since the long-running talks with Obama that were useless, they just want to stall. So yeah, there's nothing that hurts them from dragging things on, and it affects the world price, and it pushes Trump closer to the midterms. His name is not on the ballot, but the war is very unpopular. So you get to the point where some people are saying, just do what you're going to do and get it over with.
Well, I'm going to tell you that I think that the American public would accept a withdrawal. I think the American public would accept kinetic action to finish this off. What they're not going to accept is doing nothing for a very long period of time.
That's right.
Right. Yeah, and letting this thing stagnate. And I think that Trump's miscalculating if he thinks that a blockade is going to be enough to keep people engaged in either direction, right? I mean, it's sort of
an unproductive middle ground. Last summer's bombing, that didn't put anything to rest, and the new offensive, that didn't put anything to rest. So, yeah, if these things have a way of dragging on. They were going to remember Obama in 2011. He was just going to help Europe oust what's his name, and from Libya, and Gaddafi, and that thing went on for 9 months of bombing. And what did we get out of it? A lawless state where terrorists are training and militias are feuding. It's these things have a way of going sour.
Yeah, and especially when you're dealing with a regime that just simply won't comply with any agreement that it makes, and
I'm sorry. Even if they agree to anything, they're not going to live up to it. I mean, 47 years. We kind of need to figure that out. And the same thing happened in Afghanistan, right? That was mission creep, but that was 20 years. We were going to go in and take care of Osama bin Laden, and guess what? And throw out the Taliban, and they're back. So, and we lost in Vietnam. So these things go, if they're not quick, like Grenada and Panama, they have a way of going sour.
Or Venezuela.
Yeah,
I mean, Venezuela was a success story. I mean, that was a real success story.
Yeah. And we're waiting to see about Cuba. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Cuba's got a better shot with Cuba, because Cuba's just a different kind of regime. right? I mean, they don't have this weird cultish, you know,
Yeah,
apocalyptic vision that they're trying to accelerate. They just want power, right? And
yeah,
or they
and the
want an
money
escape.
and the money that comes with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
not many people paid attention, but according to Rubio, Trump offered Maduro all kinds of keep your stolen assets and go to somewhere and live forever. And he chose not to accept it. So if
Yeah,
Iran,
I think there's a credibility issue prior to what we did with Maduro. I think that Maduro figured we wouldn't follow up on it. That we
yeah,
like
yeah,
to we like to speak loudly and not use a stick at all. And he discovered that that wasn't the case with Trump, especially not in this hemisphere. Um, I don't think that the IRGC still thinks that Trump won't act, but I think that they are pretty sure he doesn't want to.
yeah,
Um, and he's given them that impression. That's the problem with this unilateral ceasefire and ignoring the fact that they are violating the agreement of that ceasefire, which was to not impede commercial traffic in international waters through the Strait of Hormuz. We've blockaded them for that, but we haven't really done a lot to stop them from interfering with that traffic. Now they're threatening. They pulled out today. They pulled out of talks. They're pulling out of talks because of what Israel's doing in Lebanon and Gaza, and that they're
it's
going to
just
spread the
another
war
way.
to the
Yeah,
Red Sea.
it's
Now,
just it's just another way of dragging it out. Yeah,
right, and since then, Trump has announced that Hezbollah has actually agreed to the ceasefire in Lebanon. That was just maybe about half an hour before we started taping this, and I'll have something written up on it later. Um, And that's mainly because Israel was just about to bomb the rest of their sites in Beirut. They had already warned residents to flee. And Hezbollah really can't defend themselves any longer. They were hoping that Iran was going to get them out of this predicament, and it's clear that that wasn't going to happen until Donald Trump intervened today. Hezbollah made it known that they would actually comply with the ceasefire that Lebanon had signed with Israel, and that they would stop firing missiles into Israel, um, which is the reason why Israel has been um, seizing high ground in the Sublitani area. I'm sure they're in the Bekaa Valley by now, and trying to push Hezbollah back north of the Litani River, which is where they're supposed to have been for 20 years, right? That was the whole UN Security Council Resolution 1701. They were supposed to have been disarmed at that point. Lebanon didn't do it. The UNIFIL peacekeepers stood by and let Hezbollah come back in and reoccupy southern Lebanon again 20 years ago, and we're back at it. But it does seem like Hezbollah is trying to find a way out. Whether that has anything to do or has any impact on what's going on with Iran, we'll see. But Trump seemed pretty happy about the fact that Hezbollah was going to agree to this, and he was on the phone with Netanyahu, and Netanyahu agreed not to attack Beirut. And that's just like I said, within the last hour or so prior to us taping
yeah,
today.
yeah,
By the time this goes up on hot air, who knows? But
yeah.
but I was struck by the fact that really the situation hasn't hardly changed at all
No.
since the last time we did a podcast. That
Well,
was
actually,
3 weeks ago.
you, I think you and I figured that out. That's why we took the break.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's good to know that nothing changed. Um, so instead, let's turn to your column, and I think this is a column right on yesterday for Trump more winning, but
Yeah,
and you talk a little bit about the war a bit in terms of the midterms, also in terms of what's going on with all of these primary challenges.
yeah,
And he's been winning the primary challenges. You have some reservations about that.
yeah. Uh, uh, um, it's not the best strategy. I understand he wants to show who's boss. And I think it's pretty clear that within the party, he is boss. And if you don't obey him, there will be punishment. Now, that hasn't always worked. Remember, he didn't get Kerry Lake elected governor or senator, and he didn't get Herschel Walker elected in Georgia. But these days, it's pretty effective. And the majority leader, Thune, has said, look, let's move on and get away from Cassidy and Cornyn. That would make sense. I mean, I don't think it made a whole lot of sense to have the fight in the first place. I understand he wants to have an obedient Senate, but going into Indiana to wreak his vengeance on some state senators, I'm not sure that was worth it. Cornyn voted with the president 99% of the time. And he also voted against the impeachment conviction.
Right.
So I'm just concerned that the lesson that a lot of those senators, they're pretty savvy guys, a lot of those in terms of self-survival. I'm just concerned that a lot of them will go, well, wait a minute, if 99% isn't good enough, what am I going to lose by disobeying him now? And
I think that the thing with Cornyn was different, though. He didn't endorse Paxton until early voting had already started. I mean, it was the Tuesday of the week that early voting started on Monday, right? I'm trying to remember the specific dates. The early voting started on the 18th here in Texas, and Trump endorsed on the 19th. And then we had the runoff on the 26th. And when he did that, because he had threatened to endorse and said the other person would need to get out. As soon as I issue my endorsement, the other person needs to withdraw. And then Paxton did something actually pretty smart. He said, I'll withdraw if the Senate dispenses with the filibuster and passes the Save America Act. If Republicans will do that, I'll withdraw as soon as it's passed. And Cornyn then said, well, I'll endorse that, but then didn't do anything really to push it. And Thune just simply ignored it. And then Trump didn't say anything for a really long time. And it was when he issued that endorsement, and it was actually not a harsh rebuke to Cornyn either. He said, Cornyn's a good guy. He works hard. We're just crosswise on a couple of things. I think Paxton is the future. It was actually, for Trump, was pretty gracious towards Cornyn. He didn't take it that way, and I understand why. But I think what Trump did was, I think somebody told Trump, Paxton's going to win this thing in a landslide, and maybe you want to get on the, maybe you want to get in front of this before the results actually come in. I really think that that's what happened. Is that
that's a very good point. You're right. He did. Trump did say a lot of good things about Cornyn, and his main complaint was Cornyn was late endorsing him in 2024, late by Trump's calendar. Well, Trump was late endorsing Paxton, so I don't know. It just seemed unnecessary going into a midterm where you're already in trouble to risk losing a seat. Paxton has a lot of baggage. I mean, a ton of baggage. I've
talked about this before. He's had that baggage for a while, and he's won 3 statewide elections. And the last one he won with that baggage. I mean, all that stuff had come out by the time the 2022 election had come through, and he won re-election by 10 points over the Democrat, who, by the way, was not a guy who is talking about God being non-binary and that there are 6 genders. And James Tallarico is really an interesting
and saying
an interesting case
in the biggest cattle producing state, and saying that we need to stop eating so much meat.
He's pushing back on that one, but he's the one who declared that he had a vegan campaign, that his campaign had gone completely vegan. And it's like, Yeah, that sells in Austin, dude. It ain't selling anyplace else in Texas. And
But
this is the
still,
difference between running statewide and running for a small little legislative district.
yeah, you're absolutely right. The trend, you know more about Texas. I just lived there a short time, but the trend
Well, not a lot more.
in these elections is to get rid of old guys. And Cornyn is 73, and Tallarico is what, 37, I think.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot of them who, I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. There's a lot of members, especially Democrats, who are quitting, who are older. So, I mean, if you want fresh faces after this election, you're likely to get it. The hope is that there's enough Republican faces for Trump to keep control so that he can get his legislative agenda through for the last 2 years, and he's not what's that, lame horse or lame duck or something.
Well, yeah. So still a couple things here. I don't think that Ken Paxton is going to have difficulty winning a statewide election. Would it have been a little easier with Cornyn? Possibly, but I think part of the problem for Cornyn is that Republicans just don't like him. And it has nothing to do with the Save America Act. What it has to do with was his vote for a gun control bill in 2022 and his lack of a firm line, let's just say, when it comes to amnesty. He was one of the people that was talking about, doing a deal for the Dreamers and stuff like that. And people in Texas didn't like that.
Yeah.
They didn't send him there for that. And I think that there's across this, I want to get back to your point about, because you're right about what this does. And it's especially in this cycle. But I think that what you're seeing in Indiana, in Texas, in Georgia a little bit, I think, is that, or we'll see it in Georgia, is that Republican voters really want people who are going to do things, not just talk about things.
Yeah.
And Cornyn was a talk about it kind of guy, and Paxton is a guy who's at least promising to take some action. The same thing was true in Indiana with those state legislators that got, kicked out because they wouldn't redistrict. Republican primary voters are tired of listening to people get elected and then do nothing.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of impatience. And remember, Trump's original sales pitch in 2015 and 16 was that he was going to deal with both party establishments in Washington, that it was the swamp and you need somebody to come in and clean house.
That's right.
Tallarico's promises are only valid. They may not be valid at all, but they're only valid if Democrats take control of the Senate. That's, I think, a bridge farther away than taking control of the House. Trump lost 40 House seats, gained 2 Senate seats in 2018, but he lost 40 House seats. That's not as bad as Obama in 2010 when he lost 63 House seats and nearly 1,000 local. He lost 20 state legislative chambers in 2010, just before the reapportionment from the 2010 census. So Democrats have not yet recovered from that. So there's a lot of things at play. And I have the suspicion, which has served him well so far, but I have the suspicion that what's at play for Trump is what's important to Trump. And I'm not sure he's thinking about the longer term, even the last 2 years of his of his term. But I think you're right. Somebody told him what was going to happen anyway, and he could jump on board the train.
Yeah. And I think what got Cornyn incensed was that Trump didn't endorse him and do so earlier when it could have maybe made a difference.
But Cornyn and and Cassidy are both around until January. So they can create a lot of problems if they want to.
So with that said, though, I think you're correct that this is not necessarily a great way to go about things, because the problem is that you have very thin majorities in both chambers of Congress, and now you've alienated some of the people that normally would vote for you on things. And they're going to run into this right now with the immigration, with reconciliation, because some people are butthurt over this. You got this whole Department of Justice slush fund thing that comes from settling the lawsuit against the IRS, and that's not a good thing. I don't care how legal it is, and it is legal, by the way. Andy McCarthy talked about this, but it's not a good thing. And now, basically, Trump has, evaporated the goodwill that he had with several members of the Senate Republican caucus, and they're not going to be inclined to help him out with this stuff now as a result, and probably won't be until after the midterms. This is what happens with purity campaigns, especially when presidents conduct them. And it's the reason why usually it's done more subtly, right? The president just simply won't campaign with you, or won't show up in your district, or, that type of thing. There's always been ways that presidents have used their influence, but I don't recall a president getting so directly involved in primary challenges to his own party's incumbents, especially at the state legislative level.
Certainly not openly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now Trump was involved in picking candidates back in 2018 and 20, and that's how we got Herschel Walker.
And
Herschel,
Mehmet Oz.
Yeah. Herschel Walker played for him back in the 80s when Trump owned the New Jersey Generals in the in that new football league that only lasted a few years. But
I think it was the USFL, if I remember correctly. It was the USFL, I think. Yeah.
So he feels obligated, and he made, which is unusual, I have to say, and he made Walker the ambassador to the Bahamas, which is not a heavy lift. So he got a good job out of that. But I think perhaps more importantly, of all this infighting in the party going into a major campaign that's going to be trouble, Trump is seen to not be talking about the economy. Remember a couple of months ago, he said he was going to go on a big campaign. He went to Pennsylvania and he gave an economic speech, and that's it.
Yeah.
If you want, you can argue that you closed the border, and he certainly did, and that was the number one issue in 2024. But it's not anymore, and voters' memories are very short. They're looking for something right now on the economy and prices, and he's done a lot, which he doesn't get much credit for, on lowering drug prices. But he hasn't talked about it because it's not as exciting as punching back on Indiana or Louisiana or so.
Well, this is what happens when you elect a fighter. Is that he likes big fights a lot.
He's not big on or good at nuance, and it might have done him well, but he's continuing an unpopular war and fighting within his own party. Unity might have been a better pitch at this point.
At this point, I mean, I think it was.
It's not as satisfying as getting even. I have to say that.
Well, that's very true. That's very true, and I think some of this is capturing the zeitgeist of your own base too, which really wanted.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, but and that base is going to, looking into the future, that base is going to be a problem if they expect Trump's successor to be as Trumpian as Trump is, because no one can be. And the tendency in history is that when you have a president with 2 terms, this is Trump's second, the next election, which is open, is people tend to go for something new and different, which would argue for Rubio or somebody new. And I think the Democrats are going to have to do the same thing. They're going to have to find somebody new. These old toads in Congress, where they usually look for their candidates, there's nothing very, very exciting there. And right now, the last poll I saw was Buttigieg is leading the polls.
Yeah,
wow,
that won't last. That won't last. That type of stuff.
like
Kamala Harris and Pete Buttigieg can't campaign. They're terrible at it.
Yeah.
So that lasts.
Although Pete won in Iowa,
It's true. He did win in Iowa,
and he ran away with it in Iowa, which was, to me, that's a say what?
Yeah, no, that was, you're right. That was those were caucuses, but yes, you're correct about that. Yeah.
And remember, that's what Biden got asked about a couple of weeks later in New Hampshire. A young college girl asked him about that, and that's when he uttered his famous lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Yeah, that's right. Forgot that was what prompted that. Yeah.
All
right, I got to ask you about one more news story. I know we're close to the end of this thing, but I got to ask you about one more news story. Jill Biden is selling a memoir. Have you seen the coverage of Jill Biden's memoir, where she is now explaining that she was so shocked at Joe Biden's debate performance that she thought that he was having a stroke, and she followed up on that by going to a campaign rally with him standing on stage with her saying, "You did so good, Joe. You answered all the questions," and then took him to a Waffle House, which is what everybody does with people who are potentially having strokes. What I find interesting about this is, first off, the shamelessness of this argument, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That this was something of a surprise. But the second part is that the media is not really having it this time around. Everybody's pointing out, yeah, she's saying this, but then she went to the campaign rally with him in the Waffle House, not to an emergency room, didn't stop things in the middle of the debate to have him checked out, that sort of thing. Never did anything like that. Even NBC, she was on Today this morning. Better when I saw it. It's just like, Craig Melvin is not exactly a hard news guy. He may have been at one point, but and it's not his job, right? He's a morning show host, which is a soft news type program. This is people having breakfast, wanting to hear some good stories and, some nice, relaxing commentary and interviews and stuff like that. And even he's saying, like, so you're saying that you thought he was having a stroke, and then you took him to a campaign rally and said he was doing a great job? And her response was, "Well, what was I supposed to do? Get up and say he did a terrible job at the debate?" And it's like, well, maybe just shut up and take him to a hospital. He didn't say, Craig Melvin didn't say that.
Am I right?
What is it about taking potential stroke victims to Waffle House? Why Waffle House? Why not Denny's?
I love that, Ed. That's my favorite of all these years. What is it?
But I mean, what I want to get your reaction to, other than the fact that you love my jokes, is that the media isn't playing around this time around. They're not buying this. First off, because it's an absolutely ridiculous argument. This is Jill Biden trying to absolve herself of the fraud that they perpetrated on the American public for 4 years by pretending that Joe Biden was sharp as a tack when he was already in senility by the time he took office, but or dealing with the onset of it. But the media helped cover that up for 4 years too, and now this time around they're not really playing around, and I think it's because nobody really wants to hear from the Bidens anymore.
Nobody wants to hear from the Bidens, and there's no price for them to pay for that. I mean, it was pretty clear to everybody. I mean, it's like saying Hitler was bad. Well, yeah, you just figured that out. It's Yeah, you're right. She's trying to absolve herself. More importantly, she's trying to live up to whatever advance she got, several $1 million for the book. Her hubby got 10 million. He's not going to write one word of that book. I think we all know that by now.
Yep.
So it, I don't know. I've run out of things to say that you can say in public about the Bidens, but it's what people in that party do. I mean, we're still hearing from Hillary Clinton, for Pete's sake.
Yeah, but I
Pete
get why you're
Buttigieg.
hearing from Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton is still compos mentis. But she's still, she's
Still
kind of like an
there.
amanance grise in the Democrat Party. And honestly, these days, she's one of the saner voices in the Democrat Party. And I'm shocked to be saying this, but I'd rather hear from Hillary than from most of the rest of the Democrats, because at least she has her head on her shoulders straight.
The party is so screwed up. I mean, I did a piece a couple of weeks ago about their alleged autopsy of the 2024 campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look, it's 192 pages, and many of them are blank. I mean, because they can't bring themselves to say what's really wrong. I mean, the biggest thing that came out of there was Kamala Harris did not separate herself from Joe Biden. Well, that's true. And do you want a president that can't be her own person? No, especially after a disaster like Joe. She was afraid of him. He actually came out in the campaign, thanks, Joe, for all the help, and criticized her for not supporting him more. Remember, she was on The View, and they asked her, well, what would you have done differently? She said, well, I can't really think of anything. What? I mean, that was the end of her campaign right then. And she spent $1.5 billion. That's $100 million a week in her campaign. $100 million a week to not separate herself and not really come up with any alternative except, remember, it was the Joy campaign.
Yeah. The Brat Summer, Summer Joy. Yeah. I called her Joy McBrat. Along with her running mate, Governor Jazz Hands McSnitchline. Yeah.
Well,
the autopsy never talked about how she ended up with the nomination. The autopsy never talked about her choosing Tim Walz over somebody like Josh Shapiro, who would have actually lent some gravitas to a ticket that was in dire need of it.
But he's Jewish.
Yeah, well, they can't say that either. They never talked about covering up Joe Biden's dementia. They didn't even talk about the debate, other than I think there was one line in the autopsy, because I read the thing and then I did a search just to make sure I was clear on what the thing said. There was one line in the whole thing about the debate, and it was just that the debate changed many things. It was like, what did it change? What did it change? Tell us what it changed. Well, you can't say that.
Do you think it changed anything?
What is it about autopsies that don't actually cut into the corpse? I don't understand. Andy Rooney lives. Andy Rooney lives in our hearts.
He does. Yeah, rest his soul. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was sad. All right. Well, we should wrap this up. And I know that you've got a joke. I've got a joke. Mine's not clean. I hope yours is. So I'll let you go first.
But you're the host. You want to go first. So this is old. These are all old. David Letterman. He says Osama bin Laden's diary was discovered. And there was one day in April where he said, "Dear diary, awful TV reception, death to Time Warner." And then a few days later, he said, 3 wives, 1 bathroom. You do the math.
Yeah, that would be difficult. Yes, I agree. Yeah. All right. Here's mine. So Jake and his buddy Fred decide that they're going to go visit a brothel. They've never done this before.
Oh.
So Jake goes in first, and he comes out about 15 minutes later, and Jake says, honestly, Fred, we should just leave. Don't waste your time. It was nothing special. Heck, my wife is better. Fred says, well, I'm going to give it a try anyway. So Fred goes in. He comes out 15 minutes later. He says, damn, Jake, you're right. Your wife is better.
Oh, I didn't see that coming. And now I can't unsee it. Boy.
Yeah. So, yep, that's the joke for today. I had another one, but I think it's a little dicier than that one was. So I think I'm going to hold off on that one. It'll be the mystery joke.
We'll pass on that one. Yeah. Just say it was funny.
It was funny. You would have laughed. You would have laughed had I told that joke.
But you had to be there. Yeah.
You had to be there. All right. Yeah. Andrew Malcolm, the Prince of Twitter, the Regent of redstate.com, who's here almost every week for us to do this. Can't wait till we do it again next week. I will talk to you then.
All right. Thank you, Edward. Thanks, everybody. See you then.